Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining with us. Welcome back to our Woodside SDA Youth page. We're here to continue our Bible reading challenge of the year, which is to read the Word of God each and every day in a consecutive order and to finish reading our Bible from front to back in 1 year. So we're doing it. And today's Bible reading is in the book of Exodus, chapters 11, 12, and 13. So to briefly summarize, chapter 11 is about the last plague that Pharaoh had to face along with the Egyptian nation, and Israel was saved from that plague. The last plague was very dreadful. It was the worst of the worst, which was the slaughtering of their firstborn sons, or in other words, their deaths, they're passing away. God gave us certain criteria. So not all the Egyptian first sons died, but Pharaoh's definitely did. And back then in history, the firstborn son played a very important role due to the financial, due to the genealogy, and other cultural and societal norms. So having the firstborn son die was huge impact emotionally, psychologically, mentally, historically, socially, culturally, everything. And all of Israel's firstborn sons were saved. Some of the Egyptian firstborn sons were saved because some did believe and honor, respected the Lord. So they were able to be saved and follow the criteria that God gave, as well as Israel. The criteria was that they had to slaughter the firstborn lamb in their cattle, excuse me, and they had to brush the blood on the doors. So all the doors, if they have a house and there's two doors, they have better have put the blood in all those doors, which they did. And they were supposed to also eat that meat a certain way, and any leftover, they had to burn it. So it was like a few steps. But the most popular one is the one we know, which is the blood on the doors. And then Pharaoh had enough, or so we think. We can't assume, right? And and he said, you know what? Yes, go, because Egypt, the nation of Egypt, was telling Pharaoh, listen, now is the firstborn sons, now is all these crazy plagues. It could be next, like our whole nation could be wiped off because of your your ego and your pride and not letting them go. Like God is telling you to let them go, and you're not. So he's like, you know what, fine. So he subdues, he allows them to leave. And 600,000 Israelites, and even non-Israelites, those who believed in the Lord, those from other nations who were just enslaved as one part of the society of Israel, left with them. They brought their cattle, and God told them, ask for gold, ask for silver, ask for certain things. And they also brought their unleavened bread with them, so they're able to eat these cakes, like bread cakes, on their way to the promised land that God has for them, flowing with milk and honey. And I learned it's not honey from the bees, it's actually honey from grapes and figs, because back then bees, at least, and I guess in that area geographically, was not a lot of bees, and they were scarce, so it was super, like they said, expensive in my Bible commentary. So it's very, I found it as a chuckle here because I see bees, it is very common. So yeah, it was sweet, and the milk was actually primarily from the sheep and the lamb. So it's not just cows or goats like the way we thought. So that was very interesting fact I learned as well. And this came because of that plague. The Passover lamb was in effect. So if you guys read Exodus chapter 12, you should see the criteria. They still celebrate it to this day, I believe, the nation of Israel. So that is amazing. And it's all in memory of what God did for Israel, how he freed them, and how God was faithful to them to the very end. Then they're talking about the consecration of the firstborn, which is Exodus chapter 13. Remember, I said having a firstborn son was something very sacred in that time. Here, they're offering firstborn sacrifices of donkey, and I believe those who couldn't have a donkey was a different animal. It's just escaping my mind right now. And they had to sacrifice that in honor of not sacrificing their actual human firstborn son, because it says that God is like, I love you all. I'm not going to ask you guys to sacrifice your children, but I will ask for the animal sacrifices. So this was a tradition, and this is where Passover comes for those who know history and cultural world history. So this is very interesting. I am so glad to have been here again. I learned a lot about history and a lot of things. So thank you. Have a great time, everyone, and I hope to see you all tomorrow.